And good morning, Hoosier Nation, and welcome to another victorious edition of Hoosier Morning After. This is Hoosier Morning After Louisiana. Last night, your Indiana Hoosiers go on to defeat Louisiana 76-44 in another fantastic defensive game. Defense kind of really being a great hook to hang this team on, something that Woody promised us going into the offseason and has proven to be true going forward. A few negatives to talk about in this game, but the positives, obviously, overall being the defense, allowing only 14 points going into the first half, despite committing already by halftime being over the limit of Michael Woodson's 12 turnovers. Second half, just kept the pedal down, which was great to see. A lot of these games, when you have a big lead or something like this, you can let the pedal off a little bit like that, and turnovers, again, tend to be, was the rough story, but a lot of minutes got to be spread around with different players and everything like that, which obviously leads to a very comfortable game. Something that, again, I've harked on last show, and this game just continues. A very well put together schedule to allow this team to develop and move on moving forward. So we've got two guests, as you will see on the show tonight. First off, a repeat face, or a repeat picture, I should say, a guest that we have on here. The face will stay mysterious unless you go to a game and get one of those stickers from him or see him in person. It's the Santa Claus of IU athletics, Martha the Mop Lady. Martha, what were your overall thoughts of the game last night?
I think when you peel back the layers a bit, it was good. On the surface, you're coming off a big win. Earlier in the week, the assembly hall's packed, the students are in town. So, it kind of had letdown written all over it, right? An opponent that's coming in, picked to finish towards the top of their conference, already picked up a road win. So, there was some concern from my part going in, would we see a letdown? And, we really didn't. I don't think there was any aspect or any point in the game where you really felt IU wasn't in complete control and, from tip to finish. So, from my seat, I thought that was encouraging. I don't think we've seen that over the last few years where, these games were in doubt leading, heading down the stretch. And that was never the issue last night. So I was really encouraged to see that. Yeah, there were some issues, the turnovers and things of that nature, but, complete control from start to finish. So that was exciting from my aspect.
Great. And my other guest tonight, Tyler, covers IU basketball for Inside the Hall and IU football for the Hoosier Network. He has written some amazing stories that you can find not only covering the games themselves, but doing the great reporting and just covering the person, the players behind, the people behind the player kind of thing. Check out his great article that he has on Inside the Hall about Ja'Kai Newton and his upbringing. And all of this, and he's an IU student. I was never that productive when I was a student, but Tyler, welcome to the show. What were your thoughts on the game last night?
Yeah, thank you for having me. I think that last night was a pretty accurate portrayal of just where Indiana stands right now, 4 games into the season. There's a lot to like. There's also a lot that is obviously can be improved on. You mentioned the defense and only allowing 14 first half points, and for most of the game, it seemed like Louisiana couldn't buy a basket. I think they ended at 19% from the field. But there's also the fact that Indiana allowed 21 offensive rebounds, and Louisiana only turned that into 11 points. But you get into Big Ten play and you give up 21 offensive rebounds against Kofi Coburn, or the guys in the Big Ten. And it's difficult to see Indiana coming out with a win if you allow 21 offensive rebounds. Also, they fouled 25 times, so there was some moments where, they went stretches where they couldn't defend without fouling. And I think the same on the offensive end. There was a lot to like in terms of Miller Kopp and Parker Stewart finally getting going. They went combined 8 for 10 from the field, 5 for 6 from 3. They kind of struggled the first 3 games, and they really got it going. And Indiana's going to be tough to beat if that duo is shooting like that. But there's also the 27 turnovers. I think the point guard play, there was some really good stretches and then some stretches that left a lot to be desired. So I think 4 games into the season, Indiana's in a really good place right now. But, it just kind of was a portrayal of their development process. They're going to continue to watch film, continue to keep growing, and they kind of have that tangible evidence of those mistakes to look back on and try to learn from them.
Those turnovers were definitely pretty bad, and even you were in there in the press box conference afterwards, Woody, telling them that there's gonna be a lot of running for the guys today, and I hope they're waking up having their banana smoothies and all that, warming up for that, because something very reminiscent of Bobby Knight, his mentor and coach before him. Something you mentioned I want to talk about, and it kind of will lead into some of the play that we saw from the guards, but you mentioned foul trouble and everything like that. Kind of a theme that we've gotten from Xavier is we need him on the court, definitely. And he's definitely our leading point guard, but he's kind of been struggling and getting into some foul trouble early this year. And when we're a little bit shorter staffed like we were today, if that happens in the season, it's going to be a little bit more difficult. But last night, it was actually a positive because then it allowed Lander to get in there a little bit earlier than maybe coach was planning to. I know Lander was probably going to get extended minutes, but let me kick it to you, Tyler, first. Do you see this being a concern moving forward for X and his foul trouble that he's getting into?
Coming back from Pitt, where he played his first 3 years, turnovers and fouls was kind of his main issue. And to me, it is a little bit concerning because Indiana doesn't need him to be this high risk, high reward type player. And he, at some points this season, has proven himself to me. I think in the first 7 minutes last night, he had 3 turnovers, 2 fouls, one of which was a technical, and no points. So he sometimes tries to do too much. And I think that's probably one of the biggest things that Mike Woodson is working on with him is just, you don't need to go for the home run ball every single time. But credit to him, in the second half, he had 6 assists, only 1 turnover. He had 2 points, but Indiana just needs someone to run the team with authority. They don't need necessarily someone to make a bunch of dazzling plays. They need to have someone that they can rely on a play-by-play basis to get Trace the ball, to spread the ball to Parker Stewart and Miller Kopp if needed. And the one thing that Xavier Johnson does have that I don't think, few, maybe Christian Lander has on this team, but just that ability to take the ball, if nothing else, and make a play. That he has that elusiveness, and it's just a matter of reining that to the right ability, because if he does try to do too much, that's where it gets him in trouble, but picking his spots when to do that and not trying to force it. So I think, just like Indiana, that there was some moments where he looked really good, but also moments where you would probably like him to pull it back a little bit.
Martha, anything to add with that?
Yeah, no, I think Tyler hit the nail on the head, and I think just with X, when you look at his time at Pitt, he struggled with the occasional technical, and it's those types of things that you want him to control what he can control, and he can control whether it gets a technical or not, right? And not to go down that path. But I think last night it was kind of a blessing in disguise. I mean, obviously we don't want him getting in foul trouble and when we get into conference play, but it allowed Christian Lander to play 24 minutes and get, that's more minutes than he's played combined the previous 3 games. So I think that was valuable experience because we're going to need Christian in Big Ten play. And he got to play a ton of minutes last night and showed some productivity. Yeah, he turned the ball over a little bit, but overall he had a good game. I think he had 9 points. So, obviously, like Tyler said, we're going to need X to be a little more consistent as we get into conference play. But again, at the same time, it allowed for us to get Lander some much needed experience and maybe some much needed confidence.
Yep. I agree with that completely. And with Lander getting in there, it was definitely a younger lineup that we had in for good stretches of this game, and a great look at the future of this team. Really like the combination of Lander and Bates in there together. There were kind of 2 plays that really kind of stuck out that they had together that I really liked. Lander was open at the baseline during a fast break, and Tamar missed him initially, getting that initial pass off, but Tamar really had the great presence of mind to kind of drive across the lane that drew the 2 defenders that were kind of sinking in on Lander to kind of come up and have to respect him coming to the basket. And then he made that beautiful no-look pass right between them for a great Lander layup there. And then Lander also had, while he was bringing it up, rocketed a beautiful pass down the court to Tamar on another fast break moment. Martha, talk about how those two playing together, the future, and just overall their games last
Yeah,
night.
I remember that the second play specifically. They showed it from an angle where it was like the full court length, and it was a beautiful pass and an even better catch. It looked kind of like a football play, and it just showed off Tamar's length. I mean, he's got those long arms, looked like a wide receiver, kind of hauling it in, and was able to finish the play. But to your point, just those two on the court, you see the future, right? I mean, a couple. For all intents and purposes, Christian Lander is a freshman, and obviously Tamar is too. But just the future of our guard play right there, and when you see the positive plays like that, it gets you excited. I mean, Christian, he's kind of a high risk, high reward type guy, right? There's times when he's up in the air and makes a pass, and you're like, what are you doing? But then there's he makes two plays like you just mentioned, so. Excited they got a chance to play together, and even more excited there was a lot of positive plays to come out of it.
And Tyler, your thoughts on those two?
The one thing that sticks out to me about Tamar is that he just doesn't look like a freshman when he's on the court for the most part. Just the poise and just watching him during warm-ups, I think that's very revealing. And not to say that anybody else isn't focused, but he just it seems like he really takes it to another level. Just watching him the first couple of games, he's just extremely locked in, extremely positive, and encouragement. And that's one thing that has stood out to me as well, is just the level that he has become a leader, especially as a freshman, and a guy that is a trusted voice. And he's not going out of his lane at all, I don't think. But he's a guy that, if needed, he's not afraid to point out to Race Thompson, hey, go, you need to be here, or he's not afraid to direct traffic as a freshman. I think that as much as his value comes with his game, that he's also just become a really reliable presence in the locker room as well. But I mean, again, last night he had 10 off the bench, and that's something that Indiana didn't really have last year in terms of just consistent scoring off the bench, a consistent spark plug. You had Jerome Hunter, who occasionally he would come off the bench with double digits, but that wasn't anything that you could rely on a consistent basis. And I think that this Indiana team, kind of spearheaded by Tamar off the bench, is becoming a team that has that depth off the bench. And I think that's huge, because last night they had 32 bench points, and obviously there was some garbage time late, but that's huge in taking pressure off of Trace Jackson Davis, because he was asked to do so much last season. And to have that off the bench, where if Trace maybe doesn't have a good game, to be able to be able to bring in a guy like Tamar and immediately inject some energy, I think that'll be huge, especially as you kind of get into the grind of the Big Ten season.
Yeah. And what I like what you said, each one of those guys you mentioned, I think different from last year that we've had to deal with, is each one of those guys has an instinct or just general ability to get downhill, getting north-south. A lot of the problems last year was that we were going east-west way too much. Too much play on the outside, trying to figure out how to probe it in and everything like that, and just trying to find the dump down. So moving on to the other, to me, the biggest positive of the game, and IU fans, obviously hold on to your seats, sit down if you're not sitting down. But did anyone see our 3-point shooting percentage last night, guys? We were 57%. That's ridiculous. Obviously, largely due to our two transfers getting started and getting going, that have kind of been missing a little bit in the past games, but finally got going for us, with Parker Stewart being 6 of 7 from the field, like you said, 4 of 5 from 3. He missed one shot. I think every other shot that he hit. I think nothing hit rim. Everything was just sinking right in. Everything looked good. Miller Kopp also had the most minutes he's had this year with 30. He missed only one shot as well, 2 for 3 from the field, 1 for 1 for 3. Just a lot of stuff that he was doing was also kind of off the stat sheet type of plays. No turnovers too. He had the most minutes, like I said, at 30, and no turnovers, in a very high turnover game. That's very impressive. Tyler, talk about those two and getting those two going, how important that is for this team now.
I think with those two, it kind of plays into this overall idea that Mike Woodson is really instilling confidence in his players, and through the first 3 games, them shooting 4 for 19, not ideal at all, given that Mike Woodson's open system is relying on guys being able to spread the floor and hit threes. But he said he wanted them to keep shooting. He wanted them to keep putting up shots because he knew they could make them. And Parker Stewart said last night that that Mike Woodson doesn't really like say anything to them, so he didn't like discourage them from shooting. It was kind of just like understood that like you're here to shoot and you're gonna keep shooting. So I think that for Indiana's offense to work, those two are gonna have to shoot well, and that was kind of my biggest concern coming into the season, because you're taking a team that doesn't shoot well, and you're trying to turn it into a team where shooting is absolutely necessary for the offense to work with the way that you want to spread the floor. So I think that, those two, as much as anyone else, are going to be huge pieces. And you did mention it with Miller Kopp. He only took 3 shots. He was 2 for 3. But at one point in the game, he had the highest plus minus. I don't know if that ended that way, but kind of going back to the point of the point guard play with Xavier Johnson and Christian Lander of, can they be reliable? I think Miller Kopp was really reliable last night. Like, you knew what you were going to get with him. He didn't make any mistakes. He was solid on the defensive end. I remember him getting some rebounds too, and that's one thing that him coming here, he wanted to expand his game. I think that it's going to be difficult for them to replicate the 8 for 10 shooting performance and 5 for 6 from 3-point. But again, this kind of shows that Indiana does have the ability to make shots. This was kind of the first game, it seemed like, where they shot at, a extremely high clip. So I think that moving forward, that will just continue to build their confidence.
Yep. And Miller Kopp with his 30 minutes was a plus minus of 34. Obviously, that's in a blowout type of game when you're playing pretty much all the game. That plus minus is going to be guaranteed to be high like that. Martha, talk about those two players.
Yeah, again, Tyler, nail on the head. I was excited because we hadn't really seen it yet, right? We've heard all about it. We knew when Parker came in last season, just the shooting ability that he brought, and obviously it's been lacking for the entire Miller tenure, and shooting's been such a pain point of ours, for a few years, and we start this season and we really hadn't seen it yet. We bring in Miller over the off season, and we know, and we've seen him do it against us, right? So we know what his talents and skills are, and so we're just kind of patiently waiting for it. And when we don't see it for the first few games, we're like, okay, what is wrong? What is Assembly Hall broke? Like, why can't anybody in an IU uniform shoot from 3-point distance? So to finally see it last night, I mean, I made a tweet last night where it's like, Parker Stewart's out here shooting 26-foot layups, because that's what it felt like, right? He got into that groove, and you're like, these just look pure. They're in. So it's exciting to see that again, and it's going to be exciting to see if it carries over too. But just really, really encouraged and excited about what that. And we even had Tamar with a couple threes too. I think he had a couple from distance as well. So if we can continue those types of performances, I'm excited about what that means moving forward.
And I want to jump back to Tyler. You mentioned something earlier on, I believe in your opening thoughts about the rebounds, and that has been an area of concern for me this season going ahead right now. And there was a play specifically in the game where there was a missed long shot by Trace Jackson Davis. He always likes to take that token long shot early on in the game. It was right before the 16-minute timeout. And Race was the only one back there, and he tries to tap it out to one of the players, but everyone else had already raced down the court to get on defense. Race was lucky to be able to kind of scramble and ends up in a jump ball. But I don't know if it appears we've heard Trace Jackson Davis mention that Woody has emphasized him getting over and trying to block shots on defense, and then obviously it looks like he's maybe telling them to get back on defense as well early when they're on offense for those missed shots. Do you think it's a lack? Martha, I'll kick it to you first. Do you think that's to be blamed for the defense, for the rebound issues, or where do you think we're missing on these rebound situations?
It's like almost a wrong place, the wrong time feel. It's like, because clearly we've got, you had Michael Durr in there with 16 minutes, and It just seemed like we were getting some bad bounces last night for whatever reason, but it was a problem against St. John's too. So for me, it's kind of hard to diagnose, what the problem is. Because clearly we've got the size, we've got the length, to be able to be in position for those, but the bounces just aren't going our way right now on the offensive end. And again, back to Tyler's point, it's something I think we could mask appropriately last night because of the opponent, but it's something we've got to find a way to fix leading into Big Ten season. We can't give up that amount of offensive rebounds combined with that amount of turnovers and expect to win. So I don't have a good feel for what the problem is necessarily right now, and maybe Tyler can speak to that a little bit, but certainly it's something we need to clean up moving forward.
Tyler, what do you see?
Yeah, I think kind of going off your point a little bit, Chad, that with Trace Jackson Davis coming over to try to block more shots, that's just going to open up the offensive boards. When you have a big guy sliding over and going for the block, is kind of if you get the block, then you get the reward. But if not, then that's going to open up a lot on the backside in terms of trying to get rebounds. And I remember last year too that Archie Miller really drilled in for guards to get rebounds, and I don't know if Mike Woodson is maybe drilling that in to the extent that Archie Miller did. And I think that was kind of a product of no Joey Brunk last year, and they just kind of needed help as a collective whole to try to get those rebounds. But, that might just be something that's not as emphasized by Mike Woodson, and I'm sure he doesn't want to give up 21 offensive rebounds, but it might be something where they have to go more rebound by committee. You might have to have Xavier Johnson trying to get in for more rebounds. And as far as the offensive end, when you have four guys on the perimeter and you're trying to run that offense, if Race Thompson's on the perimeter, he's just not going to be under the basket. So there's just less opportunities for him to have maybe put back dunks or things of that nature. There was a couple of times last night, Geronimo went flying in and almost had insane dunks. I think he missed both of them, but that's just, some of them is just who's going to be crashing if you're going to be getting back. But when you are trying to run more perimeter oriented offense, you're just not going to have two guys sitting under the basket. So it's just less likely that, the ball is going to fall into one of their hands.
Now, you mentioned Geronimo. Maybe let's get into talking about him a little bit. Last night, he had 21 minutes, ended with only 3 points, took a lot of shots, and a lot of those putbacks, like you said. It was 1 for 7. 0 for 2 for 3. I like that he's still trying to probe and find that 3-pointer. But I love his intensity. I love his attitude. Obviously, one of the big highlights that they love to show was him staring down the other guy. And it was a little chippy in the first half, but obviously the refs kind of honed that in and everything. But Jordan, I think, had a pretty decent game and an active game. What did you see from him last night, Tyler?
I think it wasn't his best game coming off of St. John's, where him and Christian Lander came in the second half, and when Indiana's lead was kind of slipping a little bit, and he immediately injected some energy. And the thing that has stood out to me, especially on the defensive end from him, he's just bringing a lot of intensity. I've noticed that he's very active when he's on the ball, using his length, because he has a huge wingspan. But using his length, using his athleticism. And he said, like, going all the way back to the Bahamas, Race Thompson was saying how much he had seen Jordan Geronimo grow. Trace Jackson Davis was saying how much he had seen him grow. And Jordan Geronimo said the biggest thing he wanted to bring to the team was just energy, was just getting on the floor, scrapping for stuff. I think that's exactly what we've seen this season. And it's also like, it's a good reminder that, he's just still really raw. Like for a lot of his high school career, he didn't really even know he wanted to play in college. He didn't really take it. He wasn't taking it as seriously as a lot of guys that were playing at this level. So there's still just a lot of raw talent. And that, I think, is something that Mike Woodson is going to have a great time molding, because, seeing that Mike Woodson has coached in the NBA, kind of has that pedigree. That was one of the reasons Jordan Geronimo wanted to come back after going into the transfer portal. But he is still very much, you can see the hints of him becoming a really, really good player just with the physical gifts that he has. And I think he had 5 turnovers last night. So that's just another reminder of, he's still learning how to play. He's still making mistakes. But I think that, as the season goes on, as he continues to get consistent minutes, which is something that he did not get last season, I think that we'll continue to see that growth from him.
Yeah, it's such a shame when you hear about guys that take a while to take it seriously, that are such just physically blessed, like that man is. Martha, what did you see from Jordan last night?
He really reminds me of a guy, from back, I'll go back to like the Tom Crean days where he was able to find some of those diamond in the rough recruits that were just, raw athletically, and he can molded them into good ball players, and they would just come and work, like a Vic Oladipo and guys like that. They weren't highly touted out of high school, but they obviously had that skill set and came in and put the time in. Clearly Jordan is getting much more opportunity to much more opportunity in Mike Woodson's offense this season than he did last year. So when you get that type of freedom and opportunity, and with as raw as he is, there's going to be games like last night, right, where he's, I think Mike Woodson's quote was, he tried to do too much with the ball, or there's some things he shouldn't have been doing with the ball in his hands, and that's just going to come with experience as he gets more minutes, because obviously he's got the raw ability and talent. We can see it in flashes, those missed put back dunks. When he starts putting those down, it's going to be electric. And I think by the time he gets into his junior and senior year, he's got all the ability in the world to be an all Big Ten type player. So I think these types of games are kind of going to happen with him, right? And as he gets more experience, he's going to learn what he can and can't do within the offense, and he's just going to become a better player because of it. So it was exciting to see some of that stuff last night.
Well, and with him, I'm going to point out something that I noticed last night, and watch for it on next game. Jordan really enjoys defending the inbound from the underneath our basket, or the offensive basket. Watch him on those. He's very excited. He's very active at that. And he actually had a steal. He likes to then chase up the guard from behind and try to pick the pocket. He's very, very in tune in that. And I noticed that a little spark kind of during those moments in the game. So let's kind of get into some stats. We've talked about a few going through. Obviously the turnovers were the bad thing. The percentage from three was really great. 22 assists was fantastic to see. I've got some obscure stats that I'm going to kind of quiz you guys on and see what you think it might be. First one I'm going to say is the effective field goal percentage. Don't look, guys, don't cheat. That's kind of a value of shots. There's an added value if you make a 3-point shot. So obviously, person that's going to be the best for that is Stewart. Take a guess at what that percentage is. Tyler, what do you think?
So is this out of 100?
It can be over 100 if you're making threes.
This is my first time I've heard this stat, so I'll go with here's 5 or 6.
Here, let me help you with going to someone average. Trace Jackson Davis last night on this was 50%. But he's an easy one because he was 4 for 8. So that's 50% right there. So then they add a value for threes. So Miller Kopp, with his 2 for 3 from the field, 1 for 1 from 3, was 83%.
Okay, I'll go with a number that I never got on a finite test, which is 93.
Okay. And Martha, what do you think?
I think because the majority of his baskets were 3, it could even be closer to 100. So I'm going to go 98.
Okay, because the 3 points throw you over that, because with Childress, who was one for 1 from the field, only being a 3-pointer, that was 150. Stewart last night was 114 percentage. Anyone else that was anywhere closer to just hitting regular baskets on the field, Thompson was 75, that kind of thing. So it shows hitting at a high clip, everything like that. It's going to be very interesting to watch that stat moving forward for him. Another interesting stat to get into is usage percentage, which kind of estimates the percentage of team plays that used a player while they were on the floor. So who do you think had the highest usage percentage? Martha, I'll give you the first kick at that.
My gut tells me that's probably Parker as well, but maybe Tamar. I'm going to go Tamar Bates.
Okay, and Tyler?
Yeah, I'll say Parker.
Parker. Usage percentage, the highest player on it was Jordan Geronimo with 18.6%. Part of that might have been with his minutes and everything like that. Trace Jackson Davis, Lander and Johnson being high up just because they're point guards. That stat's going to be kind of leaning towards them because obviously most plays they're bringing the ball up, but they're 15 and 13% respectively. And then Trace Jackson Davis, the only one behind that, 14%. It's kind of interesting to look at generic stats like that. Any other stats that you guys saw that you want to point out? Tyler, I'll go to you first.
No, I think we covered most of them. I think just continuing on the line, just the 3-point shooting and I think that just the overall offensive efficiency, I think it was maybe 57% from the field, 53 from 3, and 77 from the line. I think those 3 stats were just, very telling of the offensive efficiency that Indiana had. That had to be, I would think, the best combination that Indiana has had between those 3 in a while. And I look back, I think, in the first 3 games, Indiana was among the best in the nation. Maybe it was top 50. I can't remember, of getting to the free throw line, of just free throw attempts. And that was something that was the same last year, especially with Trace Jackson Davis, just getting to the line a lot and being able to, just convert on those points is something that is so simple, but also that it's so frustrating that if they can't do it. But I think that being able to shoot free throws at that high clip is just, it's just enormous for Indiana, especially as you get into the Big Ten and you don't know what you're going to get on a game by game basis with the referees, or I guess you will know, it's just inconsistent calls. So I think that being able to knock down those free throws is just, it goes without saying, but that's just enormous.
Yeah. I hope the Big Ten refs let them play a little bit more. We've kind of had a few games recently where the refs have interjected themselves a little bit too much, slowing down the game quite a bit. Martha, any other stats that you'd like to point out?
Yeah, I think when you look at the box score, just the balance that jumps out at you, right? I mean, we had 3 reserves play more minutes than 4 starters, which some of that's because of foul trouble and insert reason, but and we weren't it was a pretty quiet, for all intents and purposes, quiet game from Trace, right? I mean, 19 minutes, 11 points, 7 rebounds. That's well below his averages in those departments. So. And we were kind of in cruise control for the entire game. So I think you look at the balance across the box score with the minutes played from Tamar and Christian and Jordan and that's what jumps out at me, right? Just you don't see that very often, and that's all without one of our key reserves, Rob Finney. So for me, it was all about the balance last night, just getting guys from the bench to come in and contribute and play valuable minutes, and I think. Moving forward, the confidence that's going to instill in them is going to be key as we continue through the schedule.
Great. All right, let's just round it up with final thoughts, guys. Tyler, hit me. Final thoughts on this game.
Yeah, I said it before. I think there was a lot to like. I think that there was also a lot that can be improved on, and I think the next 2 games are just, pretty much going to be fine tuning before that Syracuse game, in next Tuesday, I guess a week from tomorrow, because that's going to be probably, arguably the biggest test up to this point, especially on the road at the Carrier Dome. I know that Syracuse lost to Colgate earlier, but that's where, Indiana's shooting is really going to be tested against the zone. Can they make shots on a consistent basis? But, I think that, like I said, a lot to be excited about from yesterday's game. Also, a lot they can look back on and improve on. So overall, I think all things considered, 4 games into the Mike Woodson era, given how long they've played together, I think that they're in a pretty good spot right now.
All right, Martha, final thoughts.
Yeah, really the same, right? The good is obviously the ability to be in complete control throughout the entire game. The bad, obviously, you look at the turnovers and things like that. But like to have 26 turnovers, 27 turnovers, and still win by 32 points. I mean, that I don't know that we do that last year, right? So for me, it's we were able to kind of counter some of those issues with the the 3-point shooting that we hadn't seen in the past. So for me, my final thoughts are just, there was some really bad, but there was also some really, really good that outweighed that bad. And it's something we hadn't seen. It was kind of new for us, within the scope of the last handful of years. So that's what stuck out to me, and just excited to see this team continue to grow.
Yeah. And like you guys said, we've got 2 obviously Coach Woodson likes to say next game up, or we focus one game at a time. I think obviously they've got Syracuse a little bit on their mind, but you don't want to look past these next two opportunities to build on what we did today, get some good, meaningful minutes for guys that need it and everything like that, and then get ready for Syracuse coming up on November 30th. I have a neighbor who's a Syracuse fan, and bringing up this game again reminds me I got to go to the drugstore today and get a tube of Colgate toothpaste and put on his doorstep today. Just kind of razz him a little bit. But a very good game to build on. Again, great stretch for the team to kind of get things settled in and get ready for that game coming up. This point of the show, I always like to kind of offer you guys a chance to kind of get to know what the guests are doing, how things are going, and everything. Martha, just talk again about your ticket donations, things like that. A lot of great smiling faces at the game last night that I saw that were people that got tickets from you and everything. Just talk about how people can give tickets and what you guys are doing there.
Yeah, continue to try to get, youth, families that haven't got to experience Assembly Hall. It's a good time to do that, right? You're in kind of the non-conference portion of the season. And there are a lot of games that, for whatever reason, whether it's the tip time or the opponent, that, individuals with tickets may not be able to attend or want to attend. So it's a good time, to get individuals like that to their first game. And if it's something you're interested in doing, you can certainly reach out to me on Twitter, and we do our best to try to match those tickets up with deserving individuals. And we continue to do that. I kind of touched on it last time we spoke, Chad, that in the process of working on a nonprofit project that we're going to announce soon, that's going to kind of make this entire thing official and streamline a lot of it and kind of take it to the next level. So very, very excited about that. And as we approach and get in early December, we'll have more to announce on that. But still, as we go down the path of some of these non-conference home games, if you know somebody that's deserving of some tickets, if you yourself are deserving of tickets, feel free to reach out. We'd love to try to get you to your first game and continue to try to grow this thing. So I appreciate you allowing me to talk about it a little bit.
That's great. That's great. And Tyler, I know it can be hard to talk about yourself and everything like that, but promote yourself, man. You do some great work and everything. Where can people find your work? What have you been up to? That kind of stuff.
You can find my work covering IU basketball on Inside the Hall. Also IU football on the Hoosier Network. I'm a junior at IU studying sports journalism at the media school. Enjoy being a student here. I feel like I'm kind of in an interesting situation where a lot of people kind of have part of their peak fandom in their college years. And for me, I kind of have to refrain myself from being a fan because I'm unbiased as a journalist. So, I really enjoy going to IU though. I've enjoyed the SRSC and the Intramural Center, I guess now the Bill Garrett Fieldhouse, opening back up. I've been running some basketball there, running some pickups. So
nice.
Missed that last year, but it's been nice, kind of just the overall atmosphere on campus this year. Last year was just it wasn't really a college experience at all. But this year, just having people back on campus, kind of having that energy back, I really enjoyed that.
That's fantastic. Fantastic. Well, thank you guys for being on. That's going to do it for this edition of Hoosier Morning After, guys. We don't have to wait long to see IU play again. IU plays against Jackson State tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. We'll have Hoosier Morning After the next morning. I'm actually going to be traveling tomorrow, watching it in the car on my phone. Thank you to YouTube TV for that. You can find me live the game morning after that game. Special thanks to Bob Thompson for producing the music you hear on the show. We'll be, like I said, live again after the next game. Until then, tune in to the YouTube channel. Follow me on Twitter at General Chadwick. There you can find out information about the show and when we're going to go live. Thanks for watching Hoosier Nation. Go out there, have a wonderful day, and as always, go Hoosiers.